rocking some fall colors in the small town of Genoa, Nevada, not too far from Reno, where I was at earlier this week, as we welcome you into the 236th running of this poker vlog, cruising down I-580 towards the PEPPERMILL. I probably had as much fun editing video this past week as I've ever had, and you're about to see why in a couple days. And that is because my girlfriend Anna, who has been in that capacity for the majority of 2023, she told me that she was going down with a bunch of her friends to Vegas to watch Wu-Tang Clan as a belated birthday celebration for her. And I told her, why don't you shoot a bunch of video in this trip and I'll make a vlog out of it. And I didn't think she would actually do it. She did it. So, if you are bored, you will get a chance to watch a bunch of chicks take Vegas by storm, going to see Wu-Tang Clan. And I gotta tell you, these girls, they do Vegas the right way. I mean, they go to the most expensive restaurants, the most expensive clubs, brunches. They do Vegas right, which is probably contrary to how I do it when I go down there. But it was absolutely hilarious to watch all this video and edit it, so that's gonna be out in a couple of days. I'm not encouraging you to watch it, but if you're looking for some bonus content that you might get a laugh out of, that'll be there for you. Meanwhile, I am still on what I would consider a hot streak, which should come as no surprise considering what we went through in August and early September. I've booked 2 losses out of my last 15 sessions, and they were both only because I was a complete idiot in both of those 2 sessions. I just made some really stupid plays, including the bluff on Michigan Bill. It really should never have happened. So if I could just clean up some dumb mistakes, I might have potentially won 15 straight sessions here right now. Let's head back to PEPPERMILL and see what we can do in a 0-5-10 game that's getting ready to start. A gloomy Friday morning at PEPPERMILL, Reno. Perhaps the only place I have ever heard of where Greek gods look down at title loan shops. I'd get into the poker room with time to wait, so, per usual, I would channel my inner OMC, and would see something that all of you who play similar stakes I play around the country have seen, and have subsequently been disappointed by, the sight of a big-time action player in the room, but playing only 1-2 on that particular day for reasons that no one really knew. He's in this video here, but I won't mention which guy he is. By the way, it was also a day where a PLO game was already running, and a list for a stud game was developing. That's pretty rare. I'd get into a shorthanded game on table 1 at 11 a.m. and would lose 4 small pots out of the gate, and would be stuck 200 when the game finally filled up at noon. I'm in the low jack with 5-6 of diamonds in a 4-way limped pot. I would check my option in the rock, and with 40 in, it comes king 5-6 rainbow, giving me bottom 2 pair. I bet 25, and it folds to the big blind, who would check raise to 100. He's the one guy out of the 8 opponents I have in this game that I don't know extremely well. But even if I did, I'm probably not folding this hand. So I make the call, creating a $240 pot, and he checks in the dark before the turn even comes out. And that card the dealer puts out ends up being the 3 of clubs. I bet 100 here, when he made it on the previous street, trying to get paid off by his draws and all of his kings. Though I wasn't sure how many of his kings would check raise the flop, it still felt like a must bet after he checked it to me here when I have 2 pair. He doesn't take too long and check calls. With 440 in, the river is a jack, and for the 3rd time in this hand, he checks it over to me. Now, I certainly didn't think that he was going to show up with ace-king and a limped pot here. But if he had a bigger 2 pair here, my question was, would he really check raise the flop just to go into a check call shell after getting called? It seemed like such a nitty way to do it. And he didn't seem like the type that was going to be the biggest nit ever. But again, he was the one guy in the game I didn't know. This was kind of one of those spots, and I feel like most of you know what spots I'm talking about, where you fear that you're beat a lot of the time, but due to the fact that they checked it to you, you have to bet out of general principle. Like your hand's just too big to check back, even though you should know that it's more likely they are being nitty with a bigger hand compared to being overly aggressive with a weak one. That's just the more likely thing in 2023 live poker. So I decided to bet. I make it 150 and he snap calls, resulting in a $740 pot. I show my hand and he does show king 5 for the bigger 2 pair. Makes sense, him being in the big blind in this spot, and I am stuck about 700 right out of the gate. I didn't look for a way to cheer myself up after that pot, so I would revisit my favorite commercial of all time.
Think we should run it again?
This Vegas Golden Knights Sports Center ad with Jack Eichel and Jonathan Marchessault. By the way, the funniest of those commercials ever, I feel, was the one where the New Jersey Devil mascot is on an elevator and someone walks in and asks, "Are you going up?" And he just shakes his head, "Nope." We then get a limp fest, and I look down at pocket queens in the big blind. I make it 75 here. To my surprise, the under-the-gun limper calls me, and it folds back to the cutoff who has the rock. Since this game has the sleeper straddle format, he gets last action unless it's raised in front of him. But since there were 3 limps, he has not yet acted in this hand, despite several other players having already acted twice. And by the way, I like the sleeper straddle format, in case you're wondering. He then decides to 4-bet me to 300. I'm obviously not folding here, but if I were to 5-bet, I'm rarely ever getting called by a hand that I have dominated. And this is a tough opponent. I don't expect him to get out of line too often here. So I just call, and under the gun goes out. Now I had just added on a hockey puck, so we are 1,300 effective in this spot with a flop that comes out king high. He bets out another 300 here. Now I was never in love with this situation, even pre-flop. And now I really didn't like it, as he's going to have a lot of ace-kings in his 4-betting range. So I just fold the hand, and you can't see it in my video. It's just barely out of the angle of the frame, but he does flash me ace-king of hearts as he takes the pot down. So any internal happiness that was built up by the VGK commercial was quickly negated, and this time I'd settle for watching a video of dogs bouncing a beach ball into the air. I would then lose another 150, as after I bricked a flush draw, I thought I'd picked a good time to bluff an OMC off top pair, but I should have known that he wouldn't bet the turn with just top pair. Turns out he had trip 4s, and needless to say, managed to find a crying call against me on the river, as I'd have to break my hockey puck and was now stuck for 1,000. I would then see the player who beat me with ace-king suited beat someone else with it, this time making the nut flush. And I would see Bugsy, fresh off his trip to Spain, take down a $1,000 pot and didn't even need to show his cards to do so. MP2 raises 40 and I have 9-10 of hearts and the low jack and make the call. Others fold, and with 95 in, the board comes out ace 9-4, 2 diamonds, and he checks. With just middle pair here, I simply check this one back, and the turn is the 10 of diamonds. He now leads out for 35, less than he made it pre-flop. Certainly seemed like a good spot to be value betting pocket kings with the king of diamonds, or pocket queens with the queen of diamonds, or a hand like that for thin value. I would later question why I thought that, because I've basically built my bankroll from thin value bets that my opponents don't make. But in this spot, I managed to think it was possible nonetheless. So I'd raise to 100 here, and he snap calls. And with 295 in, the river is a complete brick, which is exactly what I thought I wanted. He checks, and I bet 150 here with my 2 pair, and he snap calls, creating a $600 pot. I show my hand, and he tables pocket aces. I may not be doing a good job of making the best hand, but I am doing a really good job of making the second best hand on this day. This is a mid-session update. You might be watching this on Halloween or the day before, and I still contend there's truly only one great horror movie ever, and that's the original Halloween. I always figured that Michael Myers looked at Jason Voorhees kind of like a lot of doctors look at chiropractors like they're not real doctors. Michael Myers looks at Voorhees and says that you're not a true movie star serial killer. I think he looks at him and says, bitch, you didn't even show up for your own first movie. You had to let your mommy do the hard work for you. And that's the end of the update.
I can hear the demons call when they do what they do, and now I feel like taking off, find a place with a view. The pain is never gonna stop if it's controlling you. I know the time.
I'd raise pocket kings and bet a queen high flop before getting raised on a 10 turn and ultimately folding the river when both flush and straight draws got there, and I'd lose about 400 more in that hand. And if that wasn't enough, I'd flop top pair and an open-ender, but would never improve en route to yet another second place finish. Then, in a stunning development, I would win a hand on this day. Now, I'd only win about 100 when I flopped a pair of queens and my opponent bet 75 before ultimately shutting it down. But still, on this day, a win is a win, and that was a rare thing. I am under the gun with pocket sixes, and this is basically where I draw the line in terms of hands I'm going to raise from these first couple of positions. But I figure unless there are several pros in the game, I figure sixes is going to be worth an open here. So I make it 35, and an OMC calls +1, and now it folds back to the button. He makes it 135. Now he can be a very aggressive player, though he hasn't really shown much of that on this day. As for me, I was at this point in the game for $3,000. I have $1,500 left in front of me, and he has me covered. I make the call, hoping this would be the opportune time to complete a set mining operation. Then, the hand takes an unfortunate development. The player who just called my $35 open now springs his trap and makes it 400. This is one of the tightest players in our player pool. It's simply never going to be anything but an abject monster. I actually thought the button wouldn't like this either, but that was not the case at all, as he proceeds to 5-bet jam for 2,000. I obviously fold, and MP1 snap calls, so we have just under a $4,000 pot, and of course that was the time where I would have hit a set. Now, one way or another, I should have never been able to get to this flop. It should have just gone raise, re-raise, re-raise. But instead, it went raise, call, re-raise, call, re-raise. But I digress. It was still a little bit tilting to see that 6 in that spot. Either way, I lose yet another one and continue to spiral down, as a bad day would become a really bad day. I thought about quitting and going home to watch the rest of Golden Knights Blackhawks, the team who got the #1 pick, Connor Bedard, last year. At one point, in January of this past season, Daniel Negreanu thought the season was over for the Golden Knights and tweeted, "The absolute best thing that can happen for Vegas this season is to miss the playoffs. A chance at Bedard, but more importantly, maybe Bill Foley fires the right guy this time. Kelly McCrimmon. This team is doomed." To say a team should try for the #1 pick, and that team then goes on to win the #1 seed in their conference and the Stanley Cup, is probably about as bad of a take as can possibly be made in the world of sports. Anyway, that's a roundabout way of me saying that I didn't leave yet. MP1 limps and the hijack makes it 40. I look down at ace, queen of diamonds in the cutoff and make the call, as does the limper. So with 135 in the pot, the flop is ace, jack 4 with 2 spades, giving me top pair. First player checks, and the hijack follows up with a $60 flop bet here. Raising against this opponent seems a little thin to me, though there could be a case made for it. But I just make the call with the other player going out. And with 255 in, the turn is the 4 of diamonds. This time he bets 130, and I am now officially getting concerned here. But not concerned enough to lay down aces with the queen kicker. So with 515 in, the river is the 3 of diamonds. I was actually debating whether or not I would bet if he were to check it to me, but he doesn't do that. He bets 200 here, and this should just be a fold. Ace-Jack and Ace-King both beat me here, and he's basically just checking everything weaker than that in this spot every single time. I was already on tilt for being dealt the second best hand in seemingly every pot I got into on the entire day, so I would proceed to make an extremely stupid call. He shows me Ace-King as I expected, taking down a $915 pot. I'm not sure what was dumber, Negreanu's tweet or my call, but suffice it to say, both were not very smart. With the game not being great and me being on tilt, I figured it was a good time to relocate to the parking lot and depart the casino. Well, $2,270 down. Could have been worse if I'd paid off a couple more of those river bets. Suppose I could have gotten away from that ace-queen there in the last hand. Really wanted to. For some reason, found myself unable to do it. But, as I mentioned, I've run good over the course of the 15 or so sessions prior to this, with the only 2 losing sessions I'd had over that streak prior to this one being ones in which I was just a complete idiot. This one today, just racked up those silver medals yet again. All right, back here at home, and it turns out my Vegas Golden Knights are not going to go 82-0. Losing their first game of the season today to the Chicago Blackhawks. And my cat Oliver, who I just can't seem to find a way to get rid of, apparently gave 0 fucks. Anyway, I wanted to mention this because I've never actually tried this, but I thought it might be fun to do here at some point in the near future. I don't know if I can officially call it a meetup game, but I'm going to jump in the Donkeys Union Club on the ClubGG app, and I'm actually going to promote the time on this vlog as to when I'm going to be in the game. So if you want to come take a shot at me, and if it goes for you like it did for my opponents today at PEPPERMILL, you'll make a lot of money off of me. I'm going to promote that time, and you can jump in there with me. So if you haven't already downloaded the app, go ahead and do it. ClubGG. It's the place to go when it comes to playing when you're on the go here in the US. And it's really simple to get involved. You just communicate with the hosts via Telegram, and they take care of the transactions for you. Just use my referral code and the club code, which are in the description below. Tell them I sent you, and you can get on there rocking and rolling on the ClubGG app, which is where I've been playing to get some practice in. Because we talking about practice, man. Even though it's real money, we out here talking about practice. That's where I've been going for that for the past year or so now. That'll wrap it up for us on this edition of the vlog. I'm going to finish editing this Girls Take Vegas by Storm special edition vlog, which will come your way here in a couple of days. Hit those like and subscribe buttons. It's great for the channel, and we'll see you back here next time.
I can hear the demons call when they do what they do, and now I feel like taking off, find a place with a view. The pain is never gonna stop if it's controlling you. I know that time can heal it all, I just gotta get through. I just gotta get through, I just gotta get through. Cause I feel like taking off, find a place with a view. The pain is never gonna stop if it's controlling you. I know that